quick sound check, please. Go ahead. Quick sound check. Yeah.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 1 2 3.
Go ahead. Again, please.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Thank you.
Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3 4.
No, you need to roll. Thank you. We're good.
Ready?
I'm good.
Mr. Vice President, it's been more than a week now since the tragedy in Colorado. It's starting to sink in. What's your thoughts now? It's still hard to believe this has happened.
My thoughts are still first with the families. The last of the victims, Isaiah Scholes, was buried today. My wife Tipper and I met and embraced and attempted to console every member of his family and the families of all the other victims last Sunday at the memorial service for all of them. America grieves with them, and America is searching for ways to make sure that no other tragedy like this ever occurs again. And I think the answer starts with more parental responsibility, more discipline in schools, more support for families that need help with mentors and guidance for kids that are going astray, more mental health care services. I think we also need to restrict the availability of guns, especially to children and those who have criminal records. I think that we also need to take stock of the impact of all of these violent images in the entertainment media that I think some kids are vulnerable to. Maybe most aren't affected by it, but I think some kids may be vulnerable to it. And it can't have no effect, otherwise there wouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar advertising industry using images to sell other kinds of behavior, buying things. So I think that all of these steps and more should be taken.
Do you plan another meeting with entertainment leaders, to an emergency summit, so to speak, to get them to help send out the message, or what would you hope to accomplish meeting with them again?
Stay tuned. You may be hearing more about that.
What did you tell the families last week and the survivors? What have you told them?
I told them that the country grieves with them and holds them in our prayers and tries to lift them up. One of them, whose name I will not use because it was a very private moment, whispered in my ear in the midst of our embrace and said, "These children cannot have died in vain. We need to change. Please promise me that we will do something. Promise me." And I said, "I promise." And I think any American would have responded that way, and I think all of us need to work together to make that promise come true.
What have you said to your own children and your family?
My children are a little bit older now, and I think a lot of the guidance related to entertainment media and violence must start with the youngest of children. And my wife and I are very blessed, and to those who are just starting out raising their children, I would say start with conversations early on when they're very young about values, about the difference between right and wrong. And most parents do this, but unfortunately some do not. And I think more parental responsibility is the #1 answer. I think that our society and our country need to make changes, of course. This culture of violence I referred to and the availability of guns, especially to children. These are all changes that are needed in our country. But I think parents still must play the key role.
There was a teen summit here this week, and a lot of the teenagers said that they need after-school programs, something to do for the kids. What can the President and you do to help build centers like that across the country?
Well, the President and I have proposed the largest new initiative ever in the history of our country for after-school programs. I just visited an after-school program yesterday in Dubuque, Iowa, where kids who would otherwise go home to empty houses where their parents are still at work instead have enrichment activities right in the school building where they finish classes. Now that can be done in every community. We already have built the buildings. The children are already there for a very small investment, and public-private partnerships can help there too. We can give them instructions on dance and drama and art, new languages enrichment courses of all kinds, instead of leaving them vulnerable. And you know the old saying, idle hands are the devil's workshop. Our mothers all told us that, and it's true.
What kind of message does this send to the world as we try to act as peacekeepers overseas, and yet we have these tragedies here in our own country?
Well, the killers did not speak for the spirit of America. The heroes and heroines of Columbine represent this country. Those who saved lives at great risk to their own, those who responded with the true American spirit in the midst of crisis and gunshots and suffering. These are the real embodiments of the American spirit, and the way we as a nation respond to this tragedy will provide the real answer to your question. And I believe that we're up to this challenge. I believe we're going to respond with the kind of changes that are needed and that will honor the memory of these slain children.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty.
You won't recall this, but I interviewed you about 5 years ago in Greenville, Mississippi.
Oh, great.
I'm from Mississippi, Greenwood, and I was there with Frank Conway.
Yeah.
Down there, and it was a long line of reporters, and I got one question with you, but it's...
Well, thank you. Good to see you again. Yeah, good luck to you. Thank you very much. Okay. See you next time. Okay. Take it easy. All right. Thank you.
Next person up.
Muchísimas gracias. The Metro car for this stop. Thanks, guys. Thanks, sir. Sometimes there's a... Sometimes there's a... Yeah, if there's not, no big deal. But